we're back with results from week number 1. Now, the number one question we got asked a whole bunch this week was, what do we eat in a day? How are we actually structuring our food?
So, in just a minute, you're going to follow us into the kitchen and you're going to get to see what a day looks like as it unfolds. Welcome to the kitchen. We're going to break down what a typical day of eating looks like for the both of us.
100%, baby. Where'd you start?
Same place every morning. I start with a smoothie, always protein powder base, and I change up fruits, veggies, etc.
Okay, so I'm very, very similar. I start most of my days after a whole bunch of water. I'll normally do a liter of lemon water and at least 1 coffee. And then I'm into breakfast. I pretty much have been starting with a smoothie 100% of the time now. Oddly enough, it's a pumpkin smoothie, which you somehow conned me into doing, and now I like it. And often I've started adding just a straight chicken breast sandwich to my breakfast because I'm hungry and I want big muscles. So that was breakfast.
As a morning snack. I don't do a morning snack. I go straight to lunch, which typically for me, whether at home or at work, is just a really big salad. Again, I change up the protein source and the vegetables I'm throwing in there and the fats, but it is salad-based for me.
Okay, lunch for me is pretty typical. I'll either do a chicken or a beef. I will do as much of that as I think I can eat with as much carb, either rice or potato, 90% of the time, and whatever veggies I happen to have sauteed with garlic.
Do you snack after lunch?
Yeah, but we'll get to that. What's your snack after lunch?
I snack after lunch. So generally partway through my afternoon, which is typically a little bit before I train, and it's some type of protein and some type of carb. It's usually the first time I'm getting any starchy kind of carb in my day. So yogurt and fruit, might be rice cake, peanut butter, might be another half scoop of protein powder, depends on what the day looks like.
Okay, for me, it's very typical. I will do, normally that's when I'll do my big salad as like an afternoon snack. I'll put a chopped up chicken breast in there, and I will usually eat whatever fruit is in the fridge while I make it. And then my other snack in the afternoon, because I know we're about to get to dinner.
Right.
I will typically have something after we train, especially if we're not coming right home to eat. Today, I picked up a muffin at the organic grocery store, which is just like an organic oat and date muffin or something.
Yeah, it looked really good actually.
It was good. But things like that will be really common for me. I'll have some type of carby snack after training so I can stay alive until dinner.
Right.
Speaking of.
And dinner, I think, for both of us is generally pretty basic. I typically do a bowl. I can throw my carbs, starchy carbs in there, usually ground beef, ground chicken, and then lettuce and peppers, salsa, whatever else is kind of in the fridge and ready to go.
Okay, and if I'm with Carrie, like if we're having dinner together, which we do a lot, I will typically do a bowl as well and mimic exactly what she's doing, just maybe with slightly more.
3 times as much?
Of all of the food in it. But it's typically the same as my lunch. I'm doing some type of carb, some type of meat, ideally a lot of meat, and then whatever veggies happen to fit. And then after dinner, are you done? What happens then?
I'm not. I am a snacker, usually around 8 o'clock. And I have a go-to staple, and it is rice cakes and peanut butter. And can I tell you, the organic smooth peanut butter that we found actually beats the other peanut butter. And we had disagreements about what the best natural peanut butter was. We were always eating natural peanut butter, but I had my preference and he had his. And it is I'm a rice cake and peanut butter kind of girl. And then depending if I still need to get some carbs in, it's typically an apple and cinnamon or some more berries, whatever I need to hit the rest of my macros.
And my snack at night, especially lately, since we've been doing this experiment, has been just like my breakfast snack, which is another chicken breast sandwich. And often if I have fruit in the fridge, I will eat that as well.
While you're making a snack?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And that's a day.
That is a day.
Okay, do you want to talk about week number 1? Do you want to know what happened week number 1?
It's pretty interesting.
Let's go talk about it.
Let's.
So that's typically what our day-to-day eating looks like. And it doesn't look much different than before we started changing things to organic. So it's a pretty like lateral move in terms of the types of foods we're eating or the calories. Yeah.
Yes, I haven't changed anything about the macros that I'm trying to hit. It's really just been a swap out for the produce or the beef that we're purchasing.
Now, for anyone who's not sure what macros means, what Carrie's saying is how many calories, proteins, grams of protein, grams of fat, grams of carbs she eats every day. She tracks that, and those have maintained, like you pretty much maintain them, just switch the sources.
Yes.
Okay. So for me, I found pretty much that I'm feeling decent with the whole experiment. We're going to talk about the results specifically in a second, but it doesn't feel as onerous to prepare or anything like that as I thought. And it's not terrible trying to find food.
No, and I think because we were already in some of those habits, like we mentioned on our last episode, that it really was, those things weren't new. Food prepping wasn't new. Portioning out food, for me at least, wasn't new. So it's been an easier switch than I thought, other than a few hiccups.
Completely agree. We'll get to those in one second. But first, the results, week number 1. So ironically, interestingly enough, we both made our own kind of separate list of what we were noticing. And then when we sat down to talk about it, we had the exact same 3 things.
Well, we actually quizzed each other in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was stealing my ideas because he asked me first. I
did ask her first, but just to make sure she would give her own answer. And then it just happened to be my answer.
I don't know if I can believe that 100%.
I'm going to ask her first again anyway, baby. Number 1 most notable result.
My appetite. And I don't mean just like, oh, I feel like eating, like hungry. And that is not a thing that I've been experiencing in the last couple months.
That's not a thing I'm used to hearing her say. Like,
yeah, I
she's
usually
hungry.
Go the other way. I'm like, no, I'm not really hungry, but I'm hungry. Like I need to eat, and not, I was dishing ice cream out the other night and not like, oh, I want ice cream. But if I don't eat something, I don't think my body's going to work the way it needs to work anymore.
Okay. And that's been almost the same thing on my end. I haven't been, and I've tried to describe this to Carrie, and I don't think it's overly eloquent. I haven't been mouth hungry. I've been body hungry. I'm not hungry or craving certain tastes. It's not like I'm looking at ice cream or when I'm leaving the grocery store. I love Cadbury cream eggs, and they're starting to pop up. But I'm not craving them, like the taste of them, the way I would have been previously. I'm body hungry for food. But it's kind of like when I'm talking to clients or other people, I'm like, if you're not hungry for a chicken breast and some veggies and sweet potato, you might not be that hungry. Like if you're like, oh, I'm so hungry, and somebody offers you that and you wouldn't take it, maybe you're not just hungry.
But and I can attest to the sweet craving because you still have a box of Milk Duds in the cupboard that have been untouched.
Which are also dynamite. Milk Duds, my goodness. But for real, I haven't had those types of cravings. Okay. Number 2?
I'm thirsty, which says a lot because even prior to this, I drank a ton of water. But I told you I was at the point where water didn't do it for me anymore, and I was constantly adding water flavor, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think if you're trying to get water in, if you're low on hydration, adding one of the, what do you call them? Like flavors? I don't know. Kool-Aid things.
Like the little squirt bottles.
Yeah. Can help someone get more water in if that's the starting point that they're at. But I have become completely reliant on it. I was not drinking water unless I had my raspberry water flavor, and I cut that cold turkey. And to be honest, that was the thing that I was most nervous about, was eliminating that. But I'm getting all my water in, and I'm thirsty. I'm through 3 liters of water by early afternoon, and getting 1 to 2 more in between the afternoon and the evening, and I'm thirsty for it.
Okay, so again, I noticed the exact same thing. And via Carrie, I became moderately dependent on raspberry water flavor, especially. But my level of thirst is high. Like there's been periods of time where I've either been training really hard or doing something like that. And I've kept a note. So it would remind me, hey, it's this time I should have this much water. It's this time I should have this much water. And I don't need to do that right now. Like I'm thirsty and I'm happy to just drink water. And speaking to the minor water flavor addiction between the two of us.
We were keeping them in business.
No doubt. So that's what I was going to talk about. At one point between our mutual residences, what do you think our dollar figure was for water flavor in the cupboards.
In stock?
Yeah, that we had packaged.
This is embarrassing. It probably just shy of $350. Like, that's outrageous. It was, people have addictions. That's terrible.
Not good. If I went to a store and I saw raspberry water flavor, I would buy it out. Like, whatever they had, I would just buy it. I still probably have 40 of them in my cupboard right now.
Yeah, and that is because it was like the best flavor. So when a store got them in, they were also the ones where it was always empty. So if we walked in somewhere and found it, we took all 8, 9, 10, 11. It was bad. The cashiers thought we had a problem.
These are for our friends. We've got a lot of friends outside. They didn't bring a mask in the store. They can't come in and buy the water. We're just doing it for them.
We'll buy all of it.
Okay, now the most interesting one. So we talked about how we're tracking our body weights, our measurements, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to measure again at the end of week number 2. But at the end of week number 1, we weighed in.
We did, which is not actually something I do often. So I made a point of weighing in at the start of this. And again, I wasn't changing calories. I haven't changed cardio. I haven't changed lifting. So I wasn't really expecting anything. And I was down 3 pounds, which kind of shocked me in the sense that I didn't change anything else. I'm not doing this in an effort to lose weight. So that's a little scary, kind of, when you think about where that's coming from or why.
Super interesting. So I was down an identical 3 pounds. This is just me copying her. Carrie can attest to the weigh-in.
Maybe. Well, yeah, I can attest to the weigh-in.
To the weigh-in.
I don't know.
I'm in the clear on this one. And I have no desire to lose weight at all. And I was down 3 pounds as well. So that's been our result week number 1. Now, obviously, I think we're both hoping that doesn't continue forever. We're going to be...
No, well, your goal was to be putting on weight.
Yeah, I didn't expect this to happen. So those are the top 3 things.
Yeah.
Week number 1.
Agreed.
Okay. What are the best surprises from doing this outside of the things we're talking about?
The food tastes different. I really didn't want that to be true. I'm not going to lie. But it tastes different.
And not just the meat, which I expected, because I've had grass-fed meat before. I'm like, oh, this is different. Like,
yeah.
I ate a red pepper. I don't particularly like red peppers. Like, they haven't really been my thing. If I can get an orange pepper or a yellow pepper, that's what I'm doing.
But he stood in the kitchen, and as I was cutting it to prepare a meal, he was eating like whole halves of the pepper.
And it was really good. Like,
different taste.
Yeah. Almost everything is tasting different. Some things more than others, but there's, like with meat, there's a distinct texture difference, smell difference. With peppers, things like that. Fruit, there's a difference in sweetness sometimes. Like, it's a different experience, which has been a really kind of happy surprise.
Notice, yeah. And I always preface the idea with the fruit because we're not eating other sugary things or indulging in sweetener or raspberry flavor.
Or milk duds.
The fruit really does taste sweet. It almost tastes like candy. And I suspect that's partly because we're not putting in any processed sugar. So the sweetness of the fruit definitely stands out to me.
100%. Okay. Bad things.
Grocery shopping takes a lot longer.
It's a lot more work. We're not doing one-stop shops anymore. We're going to 2 or 3 different places to get everything we need.
And that has been... The availability of it surprised me in terms of that is easier, but we are definitely hitting more stores and planning, I guess, the grocery stops a little more frequently. I'm coming from, I do a 1 big grocery shop that gets me generally through the week before I have to grocery shop again. But that's changed. And
I've always shopped like off the cuff. I'm shopping every 48 hours kind of thing. So that hasn't bothered me, but I'm not used to going to multiple places.
Right.
Now that said, we found a super cute little farm store 8 minutes from here. Yeah. Like from right here.
And really lucky. And we went in and I actually only expected it to be the meat. Mm-hmm. So we had done some research online. I had done some research about them a ways back and I had tried some of their meat. But they actually have store hours and we went in and they had all kinds of fresh produce as well. And some of the other products that we had found at other stores that we liked. So that was really handy.
Super handy. But that's definitely been one minor negative that we've got to go to multiple places.
I think it's also made us more, or at least made me more cognizant in what I'm eating and when. Because when you're purchasing something fresh and you have paid a little bit more money for it, it's not as easy to be like, oh, I'll put that in the organic waste, like compost bin because it went bad. I'm much more mindful of, because I'm paying a little bit more, I'm making sure, oh, I'm going to use that first because they're going to spoil before X does.
100%. Okay. Speaking of finding food, one other minor negative has been there's certain things that are harder to find.
Oh, yeah. Iceberg lettuce. And I understand this is not high in nutrient value, but I like it in my taco bowls. I can't find organic iceberg lettuce anywhere, but the romaine is working well. And I love asparagus. It's one of the dark green vegetables that I can eat that doesn't bother my stomach. And I think it's delicious. And I have not been able to find it anywhere in any of the grocery stores that we have sourced out.
That's been a personal heartbreak for me as well, the lack of asparagus. Anyway, one of the biggest pieces of feedback we've gotten, both in terms of questions and maybe people who aren't super big fans of the idea of organic,
right,
has been, but it's so expensive. Baby, are we broke yet?
Well, no, we're not broke yet. We're budgeting out the groceries and I think paying a little bit more attention to the cost of them. And 100% buying this way is more expensive. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. However, in the variety of stores that we have been to, we've been able to start trying to kind of price match or at least get our bearings about what costs what and where. No different than when people would talk to me about going to Costco. Costco's great, especially if you know your prices, but sometimes you cruise those aisles and you come out and you've spent $300 more than you went in to buy. So we've been paying attention to what we're paying for frozen fruit at this store versus this store. And to be honest, one of the examples was normally the frozen veggies that I buy are 2 for $7 when they're on sale. And when we were in that grocery store this week, the organic frozen veggies were 2 for $8. So yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's $1.
In that case, super marginally.
Yeah.
And I've roughly projected as we're doing the math. And it's a little bit trickier because we're splitting it between multiple stores.
Yes.
I think we're probably spending about 30% more on our food than we were previously, which isn't nothing. If this turns out to continue making us feel better and better, I think that's a very worthwhile investment. But a little bit of food for thought. We were leaving like an organic food store. And Carrie wanted to pick up like a snack for the drive home. She's like, oh, we'll grab a thing of raspberries.
I was hungry. This is a new thing for me. And I'm like, I need to eat in the car. So I was going to get some raspberries. I went over to the shelf, went to pick them up. And this one over here freaked out.
Way.
They're $7.99. That's like a snack for you. We can't spend $8 on a snack. And I started laughing and I turned to him and I said, okay, I understand that because when I'm looking at the raspberries, $7.99 is a lot. And I know there's other grocery stores that I can get them at that are organic, that are cheaper. But my lattes, when I was at work and would go out for a lunch break, I would pick up an Americano Misto every day for the tune of $6 to $7, maybe $8, depending on how many shots of espresso I put in there. And really, that was the equivalent. I said, I wouldn't bat an eye at spending $8 on a Starbucks drink. And yet I'm standing here questioning whether I should spend $8 on what is pretty much the same idea in terms of a snack. Oh, this is my latte to get me through the afternoon. This is my snack that I'm going to eat until I'm home and I can prepare dinner. So $7.99 for the raspberries. And again, you can get them at a better price, or $7 on Starbucks, which you were doing all the time, sometimes twice a day with your kiwi refreshers.
Yeah, when I found out about kiwi refreshers, I was getting a Trenta twice a day all through the summer. And that's a really interesting thing because Carrie kind of pointed that out to me. One, I was embarrassed. But two, it got me thinking more and more. It's not a big deal to me to spend $20 more on a nicer bottle of wine if we're having a night together. It doesn't mean that much to me to spend $30 on a cigar if I could get a cheap one for $5 with, I don't know, some kind of vanilla tip or some kind of garbage like that. Like those things, I'm like, oh no, that makes sense. I'm going to do this. This is better. And it's really interesting. We've kind of got this set point for food or what's convenient.
Right.
And then when we do something like this, it's like, whoa, raspberries cost this? I'm like, well, I smoked a $40 cigar. What am I talking about raspberries for?
Right.
The week before we did this, we bought $70 worth of Starbucks at least. Like, what are we?
At minimum.
So
having a snack with that drink, and we were $20, $25 through the drive-through.
Yeah. So kind of recalibrating. Yes, it's more expensive. But I think in terms of reallocating where money's come from, it gives a completely different context for that.
And I think too, we've had a little bit of this conversation when we've been asked about the price, but we've had no takeout. We've done no drive-throughs. No one's doing anything for entertainment value right now with COVID, but there's so many times where we go out for dinner or we order something in, and I don't think people actually consider that coming from their grocery budget, but it's replacing however many meals that you would be having. And so yes, the price of groceries are up, but there's other costs that are coming down.
Completely. And it's an investment. Like, obviously this is just a test right now, but we're testing how this changes our bodies, our health, how we function in general. And if we can reallocate money from something else to do that, I personally think it's worthwhile, but that's definitely one of the biggest questions we've got. And speaking of questions, we've been getting a lot of them sent to each of us. So if you can hear that, that is the dog currently enjoying a bone while we do this.
I apologize. She has no manners.
I don't know if we've given her enough attention. Like, can you just turn this off and come play with me? We're about to wrap it up, Daph. We've gotten a ton of questions, message to us, all that kind of stuff. We shared the first video. So if you have questions, maybe what should they do if they have questions?
Hit us with them. And our hope is at the end of each little segment, much like this with the idea of cost, we'll try and answer them to the best of our ability.
We'll give you our experience, and you can do with that what you will. And that's it. Thank you for watching week number 1, or the end of week number 1, and we'll see you in a week.